If you look at most maps of the world, they make the West and the global North appear to be far larger than the global South. Take a look at most maps of the world. You would think, based on these maps, that Greenland is significantly larger than Saudi Arabia. In fact, the opposite is the case. If you look at Iran, you would be hard-pressed to come to the conclusion that Iran is the same size as Alaska, although Iran and Alaska are just about the same size. The way in which we present the world says a lot for how we see the world. And I think one of the reasons why people in the West have such a hard time understanding what it will mean for Western power and Western culture and Western perspectives to be less and less important is because of the ways in which we are used to representing the world. A recent report out suggests that the economy of the Arab world is larger than the economy of Russia. 30% of the world's population lives around the Indian Ocean. One of the most dynamic cities in the Indian Ocean region is Dubai. One of the reasons why Dubai continues to be so important is because it is at the hub of many different worlds: the Middle East, West Asia, South Asia, Southeast Asia, and the Indian Ocean economy. But we don't understand that because we tend to look at the world through the lens of everything starts and ends in the West. What I find really interesting, however, is that people in Asia, in the global South, in the Muslim and Arab world, don't know what to make of this shift in power themselves either. So two very quick examples that I think indicate how thought leadership is behind economic change, behind economic shifts. And when I say behind, I mean racing to catch up, or perhaps not even trying to catch up. There's a development in the Persian Gulf that was developed by Dubai called a world, where people could purchase islands, which were basically chunks of a map of the planet. However, the world as a development reproduces the skewed Western view of the world, so that here you have a majority South Asian Arab emirate in the Middle East producing a world map that diminishes its own size with respect to the rest of the world. People aren't yet used to looking at the world in the way it really is. And as the world becomes more democratic, as demographics begin to connect more and more to consumption, then we will see a shift in the way the world is represented. Second thing that I thought was really interesting is if you've ever been to an American grocery store, you'll find an ethnic food section, which is always amusing to me because it implies that some people either don't have ethnicity or don't have food. But generally in ethnic food sections, you'll find Indian, by which I mean South Asian food, you'll find Mexican food, you'll find Chinese or East Asian food, and these are reserved for people who aren't white or black. So I was in a grocery store in Dubai a few days ago, a grocery store called Spinneys, which actually started off in the Middle East, and it has an ethnic food section. And it was amusing to me because pretty much everyone in the grocery store fit the definition of ethnic. And in that aisle you found Mexican food, Chinese food, and Indian food. So it's the same thing as the world development in the Persian Gulf, reproducing categories through which the West perceives you. People in Asia have not yet got to the point where they have the confidence to produce their own categories by which to understand themselves and the rest of the world. And this shift in power will not be complete until you see two things happen. One, you're going to see people from the region, from the Middle East, begin to understand themselves through categories that they construct themselves. That means transcending boundaries like Islam in the West or East versus West and producing modes of identification that come out of their own cultures and identities. The second thing you have to see, and which I think is going to be hard for a lot of people in the West to swallow, is when people in the global South begin to construct mechanisms and perspectives by which to understand the West. Namely, what does it mean for an Arab or Muslim society, or what does it mean for an East Asian society to look at, engage with, and understand the West? And usually, this is the last thing, right? It's sort of like economic power comes, and then cultural power comes, and then you get the confidence to do that. And so I think we have not yet got to the point where people in Asia and people in the global South realize the full ramifications of what is happening right now.